A great deal has been happening across the South Caucasus and beyond over the past few days. Whilst Azerbaijan has continued to consolidate its place within the emerging Central Asia 6 framework, most recently reinforced by the informal summit in Kyrgyzstan, Armenia is entering a new political phase following its parliamentary elections. The composition of the new government has brought more continuity than change. As far as the actual parliament is concerned, Ruben Rubinyan assumed the office of Speaker of the National Assembly, whilst the political future of his predecessor, Alen Simonyan, remains to be seen. Equally significant for the wider regional connectivity agenda is the future of Armenia's railway system, which continues to be operated by the South Caucasus Railway, a wholly owned subsidiary of Russian Railways under a long-term concession agreement signed in 2008. Recent discussions in Yerevan over the future of that concession have added a further strategic dimension to debates surrounding regional connectivity. And joining me now from Tbilisi is Georgi Tomasyan, international relations expert. Georgi, welcome to Context.
Thank you for having me, Orhan.
Well, first of all, what do you make of the current composition of the government? It's not really radically different to the previous administration. What does it tell about Prime Minister Pashinyan's objectives?
Well, it tells us about the continuity of the policy of the government of Armenia, which was there before elections, and right now there are no major changes in foreign or internal policy of the government. I believe that's a good, positive and good sign, because we all expect that there is stability in political terms and in understanding where we're going and what the region will look like during next years.
Ruben Rubinyan has played a central role in the Armenia-Turkey normalization process, chairing the process on the Armenian side, and now he is elevated to the office of Speaker of Parliament. Do you interpret this elevation, amongst many other things, as a signal that Yerevan is very serious about Turkish-Armenian normalization? In fact, his elevation testifies to the importance of that particular dimension of Armenian foreign policy.
Of course, I'm sure that that's a testimony of significance and a clear message to Ankara that Yerevan is positioned and believes that there is a strategic importance in development of bilateral relations between Armenia and Turkey, and I believe the statements were made by the government as well as by Mr. Rubinyan himself. Also, we see the processes related to the railway of Gyumri Kars are proof that for Armenia, normalization of relations with Turkey is a very important strategic goal, and I believe Mr. Rubinyan will be able to do much more in this position, since it's a very important mandate actually in terms of constitutional model of Armenia, and his position will make him more powerful in order to further develop the common agenda between Armenia and Turkey.
And what do you make of the departure of Alen Simonyan from the position of speakership? Do you expect that he will remain as an influential figure? He's not part of Pashinyan team as such, as I understand. He's not a member of the cabinet. He's no longer MP, member of parliament. He's no longer speaker. What will happen to him? Because he had been very active up until the election, together with Prime Minister Pashinyan. Now he's outside the Pashinyan team, as far as one can judge on the basis of external observable. What do you make of his situation?
Well, I believe it's part of the internal policy and not related to any other geopolitical processes, and possibly something connected to his own place in the party of civil contract. He's remaining as a member of party, even though he himself refused to become member of parliament, since he believes that it's not the position after being the chairman of the parliament. It's possible that at some other direction he will find his political career to develop, but anyway, I don't think that anyhow really changes Armenia's internal policy at the moment. So we will see what Mr. Alen Simonyan prefers in terms of his own future political future.
Let's go to the point, to the subject revolving around Armenia's railway system. One of the most strategically significant issues concerns this particular railway network in Armenia, which continues to be operated by South Caucasus Railway, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Russian Railways, effectively owned by ownership rests with Armenia, of course, but the active management is operated by the company which is owned by Russia. Of course, it goes back to 2008 concessions agreement. And recently, Prime Minister Pashinyan mentioned about a potentiality and possibility of taking this case to the international arbitration. What do you make of that?
Well, it was the statement of Prime Minister was after the statement of Russian Federation's representative, who is in charge of the railway. And it's related that they would request about $2 billion or some huge amounts of money related to any possible changes to the status of railway operation in Armenia. So Prime Minister Pashinyan said that it's possible for Armenia to also address arbitrary courts in order to solve the issue, because as we know, Armenia has now procedures ongoing related to the reconstruction of railway from Gyumri to the border of Turkey. So it's against the logic of concession agreement, actually. But since Prime Minister Pashinyan had his statement during the fall of last year that Armenia officially requests from the Russian side to start the construction of the railway, and Russian side did nothing, and actually Armenian side believes that it's in order to prevent further logistical opening of the region and including independence of Armenia from one or few logistical roads. In that terms, Armenia believes right now that there is no need to wait to Russia's approval or Russia's preparedness to do that, and Armenia is going to repair that part of the railway by its own capacity.
What's about legal risk if the agreement if the agreement is unilaterally revoked? Of course, naturally, there will be economic, financial consequences. I mean, some Armenian legal experts, energy experts, are saying that the concession agreement permits naturally unilateral termination, but of course, such a step could expose Armenia to major international investment disputes with compensation potentially reaching several $100 million. What do you make of that risk? Because it has been voiced in Armenia that unilateral termination may lead to certain unfavorable results, consequences for Armenia.
Well, I believe that the team of legal experts under the government of Armenia they are working right now in that direction in order to find the best ways for Armenia from this situation. Of course, it's not an easy one, but we should understand that there is no other option at the moment left, because we see need of opening the logistical railway in that direction, and not only in that direction, but also related to Yerevan going to the Azerbaijan's territory of Nakhchivan, and as well as to other directions. So Yerevan has no other option, and I believe that if Russia really starts the process of in pressure related to this financial fines and so on, Armenia has, and Prime Minister Pashinyan voiced it already, has its own tools in order to request different fines from that Russian company. So of course it's a negative process, and Armenia's and Russia's relations are not in the best shape right now. I believe that the situation will be solved in more diplomatic way, but it's a two-sided game, so it also depends on the position of Moscow. If they are not ready to really agree with Armenia and start the reconstruction process, then what's left for Yerevan?
Very interestingly, when it comes to Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, which is an American entity functioning on Armenian territory, operating that connectivity piece, connecting two separate parts of Azerbaijan via Armenian territory. Do you see TRIP itself sort of emerging a bigger body and operating different sections of Armenia's railway system as a result of this concession agreement being terminated?
I don't see any discussions related to that in Armenian public processes, discussions. At the same time, I would say that it's more possible since the rest of the railway, the operating railway which we are talking about is actually owned by Armenia. It's just operated by Russia.
Yes.
So the core idea is to change the operator, and I believe that Armenia priority is to actually operate it by itself, since you already mentioned that for three projects there will be different status. So for the existing railway system, operating that railway system, which Armenia already owns and has no any agenda to sell the system. So it's clear that that could be a realistic alternative. But anyway, I believe that opening logistical ties using this railway system as well, together with the implementation of three projects, is very important if we also take into consideration wider geopolitical developments in the region, and if we take into consideration the fact that more roads you have, cheaper it would be probably, and will have more economic benefits for all sides.
See, well, of course, naturally, no one doubts ownership. Territory is owned by Armenia. It's all about management, who is operator. And that's part of the bilateral deal between the sovereign state and external body, as I understand. One more question, if I may, Georgi. It's about Azerbaijan's foreign policy and to what extent Armenia could align with it, bearing in mind that the two countries have been pursuing peace agenda and sort of together with Georgia building or laying the foundations of future House of Caucasus. Azerbaijan is now is a full participant in the Central Asia 6 format, and there's an increasingly widespread view that Central Asia and Azerbaijan together constitute a single strategic space, and Caspian Sea should play a role of connector, not a sea of division. And looking further ahead, could we envisage a broader framework wherein we're not just talking about Azerbaijan and Central Asia being part of one common strategic space, but also Armenia and Georgia as well? Of course, naturally, Armenia has been pursuing its own foreign policy regarding European Union. Georgia is also a candidate country, but still, could we conceive Caucasus and Central Asia together for the purpose of connectivity and potentially, in the fullness of time, common sort of space with common regulatory system and norms?
I believe it's a very interesting opportunity, and let me be clear that for Azerbaijan itself, being part of the Central Asia platform and this geopolitical process is ongoing there, I believe it's a huge milestone and very important success in foreign policy. At the same time, Azerbaijan's role in South Caucasus was and is increasing in terms of logistical ties and connectivity as well. So Azerbaijan is uniquely positioned right now to pursue the process you mentioned in order to have a wider connectivity programs connected to the South Asia integration and connectivity. And at the same time, of course, I believe peace process between Armenia and Azerbaijan is crucial in that direction. But the trilateral processes related to Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan would be also valuable, and they are developing in different terms. So increasing the process to that. We also see that, of course, Armenia-Georgia relations are developing quite actively. And in that terms, Georgia and Azerbaijan have very important strategic relations for long decades. At the same time, normalization between Armenia and Azerbaijan and Armenia and Turkey would really bring the region to the new era of connectivity, peace, stability, prosperity, which would boost investments to the region, to all countries, and all three countries of this will benefit from that. But Azerbaijan has also this possibility, as you already mentioned, also to wider it, to extend the process to the Central Asia, and that gives Baku strategic importance to this process as well. So I believe that there are many possibilities for every country in the region, and that's why we all need to work closely in order to achieve that for the common. And it's very interesting. We are first time since independence of South Caucasus countries, we are first time speaking about common interests of peace, stability, and prosperity in the region, which will boost the region. And already saying the region, it's also interesting because we had huge problem of forming any type of region. So when we have some now common interests based on few major directions, that would somehow form here a region which would actually benefit, because Central Asian region is very important, but without South Caucasus, it lacks major strategic connectivity to the Western Eurasia.
But there are, of course, naturally a couple of very competing narratives, also a number of narratives which align with each other. We understand that Central Asia, Azerbaijan being one region, is also conditioned by Azerbaijan being a Turkic country, and four out of five Central Asian countries, also Turkic countries, they're also part of the Organization of Turkic States. Simultaneously, we also understand that for Europe, the importance of South Caucasus lies perhaps not in the value of individual countries, but also in the cumulative import of South Caucasus, providing access to Central Asia. So in that also we know that European Union, in the person of Marta Kos, and of course naturally Ursula von der Leyen as well, who was in Azerbaijan in April earlier this summer, also of course naturally are talking about quadrilateral format involving Turkey, Azerbaijan, Armenia and European Union, which is designed as a recognition of the latest developments taking place between Azerbaijan and Armenia and Turkey. So we see the convergence of different formats, and they do not really contradict each other. My last question to you, Georgi. We all know it's no brainer. Azerbaijan and Armenia haven't yet signed the peace deal. They initialed it. And there are a number of things happening without the peace treaty being signed. One of them is limited economic interaction. The other element is Peace Bridge Initiative. But some analysts are saying that we could reach a point in this limited economic interaction business when if certain opening on the Turkish-Armenian front happens, which of course tied with Azerbaijan-Armenian peace process still, Armenia may be less interested in Azerbaijan-Armenian peace if the benefits from Turkish-Armenian front comes and from European Union happen to be part of the landscape here. What do you make of that? What could happen between Azerbaijan and Armenia in the absence of a signed and ratified peace deal? And to what extent this lackadaisical sense that without peace deal we could actually cooperate and interact could be damaging to the interests of both countries?
Well, I believe that we are going to the peace deal in that direction, and it's very important to use all opportunities in order to have real peace on the ground, connections between people, and because we acknowledge that we have quite difficult past, painful for all sides. So in order to overcome that, we need time and need real peace on not only on paper, but first of all on the ground. So in that terms, I believe that opening land border between Armenia and Turkey, developing normalization of relations would only support and assist the improvement of relations of Armenia and Azerbaijan and mutual different type of connections and trust, which is very important. Building it with Turkey, also it would be easier, I believe, at this stage even to have some connections to Turkey, but it would also open this because we are in the stage of transformation of public opinion. It's happening in Armenia, it's also happening in Azerbaijan, and we appreciate all efforts by all sides which is in that direction. We need time. We will go and reach, of course, this peace deal, but I publicly say that in order to have this public policy, not only by the government of Armenia, but the majority of population of Armenia, they also need to see real peace on the ground, to believe, because there is propaganda, there are different powers which are spreading lies related to the ongoing peace process. So when it's on paper, it's not fully understandable for the people what it is. So in that terms, improving, extending and further developing connections with Azerbaijan, with Turkey, and not like one side or another, but both direction at the same time. So doing it with Turkey as well, with Azerbaijan as well. Right now, Armenia clearly says that with Azerbaijan, it's gone further than with Turkey, and there are some expectations related to Turkey's steps in that direction. I personally, and Chairman of Parliament Ruben Rubinyan, said that there is no any logic why Armenia and Turkey right now they don't have relations, for example.
Thank you.
So with development of that, I believe that will further motivate Armenia to also develop to further relations with Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan-Armenian peace is absolutely, as I understand what you said, is absolutely central. Nothing can replace its importance, and all other developments would only help the achievements attained by virtue of that peace between these two countries. I mean, we already have a very limited time. Probably our time is already over. But do you expect the deal signed in early next year, mid next year, 2027? Very brief answer. We literally have only 30 seconds.
Yes, I believe that we need to do everything in order to sign this as soon as possible, understanding the legal realities at the moment, but first of all, building real peace, and at the same time, going to signing the document as well, of course, by removing all obstacles for that.
Georgi Tomasyan, international relations expert, joined us from Georgia. Thank you very much indeed. Most grateful to you, Georgi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Armenia's a new political chapter has begun, but some of the most consequential and important decisions still lie ahead. Amongst them, a few may prove more significant than the future of the country's railway network, a question that extends far beyond transport, touching upon sovereignty, a question of ownership, management, vis-à-vis between Armenia and Russia, regional connectivity, of course, long-term relationship with Moscow, and ultimately prospects of lasting peace in the South Caucasus. We will continue to follow these developments and analyze them in a proper manner. You've been watching In Context, and see you very soon indeed.